Okay, geweldig. Zok the Heilige Gemara. But yesterday we learned about a two-way machlokes between Yehuda and Rebbe Elazar on one side, who held that the Isser Ever Min Hachai even applies to a behemoth tmeah, and the Chachamim who said that it only applies to a behemoth shera. Rabbi Yehuda and Rebbe Elazar learned it from the fact that the pasuk of Ever Min Hachai is also talking about the Isser to Itam, and therefore we say, just like the Isser to Itam applied to Behemoth Tamei as well, so too the Isser to Ever Min Hachai applies to a Behemoth Tamei as well. And the Rabbanan said, Mineu Bey, if you look at the words of the Isser of Ever Min Hachai, it says, L'seichel al nefesh im basar. Don't eat the nefesh with the basar, but the basar alone you're allowed to eat. So therefore the Isser only applies if otherwise you would be allowed to eat the basar. But on the behemoth tmeah, or regardless you cannot eat the basar, you would not be an Isser of Ever Min Hachai. Frag the Gemara, if Rabbi Yehuda, Lama Lekra, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we learned it from the fact that there's a smichos to dam. That's how we know that it's even the geah for a behemoth tmeah. Frag Rabbi Yehuda, why don't you the pasuk specifically to go out of its way and tell me that the Isser Ever Min Hachai is chal upon the Isser behemoth tmeah? Lacy Isser Aver, the Lacy Isser Aver, the Isser Aver Chai, which should be Leichel Isser Tumah. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda said that the Isser Gid is Chal on the Isser. Rabbi Yehuda said that the Isser Gid Anosha is Chal on the Behemoth Tmeya. Why? Because Shekin Yisur Noig B'vnei Noach. The Isser came even before the Isser for Behemoth Tmeya came. So using that same logic, Ever Min Hachai was also Osher B'vnei Noach. So if that's the case, that's good enough of a reason that it should be Chal even on a Behemoth Tmeya. And therefore, why did it need a special person? You're right. Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that the fact that it's Noig B'vnei Noach is a reason why it should be Chal, he doesn't need a pasuk. He would have known Ever Min Hachai without a pasuk. The reason why the Bride quoted a pasuk is V'chi Itzrach Kol Rabbi Elazar, who doesn't necessarily share that opinion with Rabbi Yehuda. We learned another brayso that's going to illustrate this machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer, and the Chachamim in the same fashion as Rabbi Yochanan did, that it hinges on the understanding of the pasuk. But this brayso is also going to introduce a third shita. Bein Timea Bein Tahira, like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar. Thank you so much. Tenemar, because it says in the pasuk, Rak Chazak Levilte Echel Adam, Kol Shat Mitzvah Al Domei, At Mitzvah Al Levorav, Kol Shat Mitzvah Al Domei, Yet Mitzvah Al Levorav. Divrei Rabbi Elazar, exactly like we just said from Rabbi Yochanan. But in this brayso it speaks out that the limit is only Divrei Rabbi Elazar, because as we said earlier, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you would note from the standard Isser Ever Min Hachai that Noig B'vnei Noach would be Chal on the Isser Behemoth Tmei. Chachamim Oimrim Ein Noig El B'Tahirin Shenemar V'Yiseichel Nefesh B'Basar L'Basar L'Chudei Kol She'B'Sari Mutar At HaMitzvah L'Evorav V'Chol She'Ein B'Sari Mutar Einat HaMitzvah L'Evorav. Okay, beautiful. Now we have the third shita that the Mishnah, this brayso is now introducing. Meir Omer Ein Noig El B'Behemoth Tahir. It's only noig by a behemoth type, so it's not negay by a chai noig. So even the Chachamim who said it's only negay on tahirin, but it is negay by if it is negay by chai. Reb Meir it's only negay by behemoth. So tzayin and bakar. How would I know that? Omar Rabba Shmuel Omar Pchista. That's one option. V'tei Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Shmuel said the name of Rabbi Pchista or maybe Rabbi Yosef. That's option number one. Option number two is Ramila Amar Rabbi Bar Shila Amar Chista V'Temi Rabbi Yosef. It wasn't Rabbi Bar Shmuel, but it's Rabbi Bar Shila. The Amrila Rabbi Bar Sini Amar Chista V'Temi Rabbi Yosef. My time with Rabbi Meir. What is the svar of Rabbi Meir? Amar Kra, two psukim preceding the pasuk of Ever Min Hachai. The Torah is discussing the following subject: V'Zavachta mi bekarcha u'mitzanecha. So this whole parsha is referring to Bakar and Tzayin, not a Chai and not a life, and in fact there would be no din Aver Min Hachai by Chaya. So Chaya, we know you need Shechita anyway. Life, you need Shechita. What would be the halacha by that? There's actually machlokes rishonim. That those hold, all you need is a sifa, taking it out. But there's actually machlokes if you need a sifa on a live fish and then you kill the fish, or then you can eat it, or what if you find a dead fish in the lake? Can you take the dead fish and eat it? So there's a little bit of a shaila about that. Because it says, it was called the Yom Yosef when Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem, am I supposed to gather all the fish? So you see, you need asifa. So there is a requirement, it's just not shchita. Zok to Gemara, right. Amar Gidel Amar.
I'm saying, when he said that was in the context of feeding.
How am I supposed to get him this food? But he was meduy because Moshe said, in Matzav Babarka, you shachet lahem. So Moshe was referencing how it needs to be prepared.
I see. Okay.
The whole other factor about the shaksu, I don't know how someone would feel about biting into a live fish, but which also is a factor. There could be about the shaksu factor, but other than that, you shouldn't be an isser of Aver Min Hachai by a fish. You should be able to just bite into it. Okay, so what does the Gemara say weiter? All this we're discussing the prohibition for a yid to eat. For a yid to eat Aver Min Hachai. Now, like this be Yisrael, but by a ben noyach, divra kol muzar ala tmein kitahir. A ben noyach is muzar ala tmein kitahir. Why? Because the whole svar of the Rabbanon was that only if you're allowed to eat the basar, there is this Aver Min Hachai. So a Jew can't eat the basar of a horse. So therefore, there's no Isra Aver Min Hachai. But a goy can't eat a horse. So therefore, by a goy, there would be an Isra Aver Min Hachai. Zog to the Gemara weiter. Tanya Nami Hachi Aver Min Hachai Benoich Muzar Alav Ala Tmein Ketayim Yisrael Ein Muzar Ala Tayim Baba.
There's a klal Mika Midi.
That there's nothing that could be mutter to a Jew that can be mutter to a goy. Yeah, so the Gemara does discuss this. The Gemara does discuss this rule, and if this would be a problem with that or not, because in this detailed case, it's that way, but the general is not that way. In other words, the general is that we both have the same issue. Anything that we're allowed to eat, we're not allowed to eat Aver Min Hachai. So if we look at Toys, we'll look at Toys in a minute. This point is brought up. So Amar Rabbi Chodesh B'Yisrael B'Noich Divrei Hakol Muzar Ala Tmein Ketayrin Tanya Vihachi Aver Min Hachai B'Noich Muzar Lo Ala Tmein Ketayrin Yisrael and Muzar Ala Latayim Lo. Ikadami, there are those who say Tahira. Now, what's the difference if it's Tahira or Tahirim? So Yisrael and Muzar Ala Tahirin. Tahirin means Bakar Behema Chayvoy. Tahira would be referencing Reb Meir Shita that it's only by a behema, not by a chay animal. So that are the two lashonis over here. So one lashon says Yisrael in the Muzar Ela Tahirin Bilvad, all kosher animals. In Kedami Tahira only behemoths, not chay animals. Reb Meir, and it's going according to Reb Meir, who we just quoted his last shita that it only applies to a behemoth. Ikadami Tahirim V'Rabbanon. But there are those who are goyris Tahirim, and therefore going according to Rabbanon that any kosher animal, even a chaya oif, has the prohibition of Aver Min Hachai. Amar Shizbi Afanana Mitalina Achal Aver Min Hachai Mimena, and Mimena Rashi says is referring to a oif tamei, I believe. Let's have a quick look. Mimena is Rashi. The oif tamei kamari, the Mishnah is there is talking about an oif tamei. Achal Aver Min Hachai Mimena. You don't get malchus. The ain't shchita mataros, and shchita is not matar. So who are we talking about over here? Are we talking about a goy eating Aver Min Hachai from the bird, or are we talking about a yid eating Aver Min Hachai from the bird? So freaking b'mai, who is this Mishnah referring to? If it's speaking about a Yisrael, shchita then shchita mataros. Why does the Bryce need to tell me that the shchita will not be mataher if you shechted a tamei dika bird. There is no din shchita on a tamei dika bird. So of course it won't be matahired. Elolav, the Mishnah must be referring to a goy. Elolav ibn Noach. And what the Mishnah is saying, Achal Ever min Hachai mimena, the goy who ate Ever min Hachai from a bird, in Yosefik as boim, but it's still also, when Shchita Matayrasa, and Shchita will not be matahired, because by a goy, Shchita has zero impact on all. So Elolav ibn Noach must be referring to Bnei Noach, Michlal da Aser. So therefore, it must be that Ever min Hachai is Aser, because this brayso seems to indicate that it's Aser. Now, goy doesn't get malchus, but it's going to be Aser. Let's see Rashi b'mai. B'mai katani seifa. What is the seifa of this brayso referring to when it says Ein shchitase mitaros? You name it Yisrael. If it's talking about a Yisrael, pshita, of course, the shchita won't be mitahar. Da tamehu. It's a oif tameh. V'aleka lefar shoy lefarusha. You can't type the brayso that it means mitarose midei tumas nevelas. You can't say that mitarose means from tumas nevelas. You know why? The oif tameh ein loy shum tuma afilu b'beis abliya. An oif tameh that dies, it's not. There's no tumah. Only an oif tara has a din tumah. An oif tameh has a din tumah. So what exactly is the shchita accomplishing? V'al karchach ein matirasa b'achila kamar. It's obviously not talking about being matir at lachila, because you could check a oif tameh all day long. It's not going to make it kosher to eat. Elo, the brayso must be referring to a goy. Levenoyach kamar. What it's saying is the shchita will not allow the animal to be eaten if it's mefarches, because we know a goy has an isra ever min hachai, and he does not have the heter of shchita. So the animal can be completely dead before a goy is allowed to eat it. While a yid can eat an animal jumping around once it had the heter shchita. But that's what the brayso means when it says then shchita b'tayrasa means shchita has no impact on the status of the life of a bird or a goy, because the goy does not have the heter shchita. The benoyach alav b'shchita toli milsa. A goy doesn't have the heter shchita. The gabi tahora hu darmin on shchita machsharei leila benoyach. If you shecht a kosher animal, even though it's mefarcheses, and normally a goy is not allowed to eat mefarcheses, but the benefit of the shchita for the yid also helps for the goy. Using your svar, you said earlier, the lekamidi the Yisrael shari uloivit gechav maser. It's impossible to find something that would be mutter for a yid to eat, and a goy would be aser. Therefore, a goy wouldn't be able to have the heter shchita on an oiv tahar, because there's a heter shchita for a yid. But whatever the case is, shemini mino afilu rabbanon moidu the ben noach munzer ala tuma be'ever min hachai. This brayso is talking about Ever min Hachai, and it's speaking about a Ben Noach. And you see, even a Ben Noach has Muzer. We have a little gimel that we have to look at. Gimel, talk about Hatmeya. So Shemami no, back into Rashi. The Ben Noach Muzer ala Temeya, the Ever min Hachai. You see that a goy is prohibited from eating Ever min Hachai, even though he doesn't get malchus. So we have a support to what we just said from Rav, that Benoyach Dibra called Muzer ala Tmeyin Yitoyer. Beautiful. Rabmani Bar Patish Rami. He wasn't coming with an agenda. He just looked at this brayso and he said it doesn't make sense. Rami Reisha Seifa. As Rashi says, the Reisha says Ein Seifa. So that means Alma Ein Ever Min Hachai Noig B'Tmeyin. And then Vadatani Ein Shchidasim B'Tayrosei, which is mashma that it is noyeh. So if that's the case, how do you make the reisha and the seifa come together? Mashani reisha b'Yisrael the seifa b'Benoyach. The reisha is speaking by yid. Because you don't get malchus for ever minachai that's meya, but the shchitas is for a goy. And therefore, it can even be going according to the Rabbanon that says that there's no din Ever min Hachai on a Tmeya. Okay, so to Gemara weiter. Omar Rav, Ever min Hachai torch kazayis. If one eats an Ever min Hachai, you don't get malchus for it unless you eat a kazayis. My timer a chiluk sin. when the Torah prohibits Ever Min Hachai, it says, Lo Yiseichel HaNefesh Al Adam, or Lo Yiseichel HaNefesh Al Basar. It says a loshon of Lo Yiseichel, so you would have to eat a kazayis in order to violate the prohibition of Ever Min Hachai. Okay, Gewalt. Zog to Gemara. My time Achilitzin. Masav Rab Amram. Rab Amram has a kasha on Rav, and we're going to have multiple challenges to Rav, who says that the Isra of Ever Min Hachai requires eating of a kazayis. The Brisa says, Achol Ever Min Hachai Mimeno. The Brisa we quoted just a moment ago. Achol Ever Min Hachai Mimeno. Eino Yisarvik Esar Boyim. You don't come out because ain't Shchita Materos. So let's think about this. V'sol Kadaita, V'inon Kazayis. If you need to eat a kazayis in order to be over the issue of Ever Min Hachai, why wouldn't a Yid, we're assuming you're talking about a Yid, Tevaglei, V'ka Achol Kazayis. You should get Malchus, never mind for Ever Min Hachai, but he should get Malchus because he ate a kazayis of Oif Tameh. And if he ate a kazayis of Oif Tameh, he should get Malchus anyway. So why doesn't he get Malchus? Elamai, you have a raya that you didn't eat a kazayis, and you're over Ever Min Hachai, even if you ate less than the kazayis, and for Oif Tameh, you'll only be over if you eat a kazayis. Let's see Rashi. You don't get Malchus, then you know with Tameya, because the issue of Min Hachai does not apply when Oif Tameh. It has to be speaking where there's a shear, because if there's no shear, there's no issue of Min Hachai anyway. If the Mishnah is telling you a chiddush that you don't get Malchus for it, it must be you ate enough to get Malchus. This is Min Hachai b'Torah askinon. You have to have eaten at least enough that you would have gotten Malchus had you eaten Ever Min Hachai and Torah, and the bride's telling you chiddush that by Tameya you don't come Malchus. You like a shear, she didn't say. So Rashi, if you will, you're not over Ever Min Hachai unless you eat a kazayis. And the case of this price where it says Ein Soifik is where you ate a kazayis and you don't get Malchus because it's a life tamei. Am I Ein Soifik? Maybe you don't get Malchus out Ever Min Hachai, but for Ika kazayis Nikalav, he's eating a sheket oif. There should be a requirement of Malchus. And for the Gemara, Kedamar of Nachman, we're going to use this teretz 3 times. Kedamar of Nachman, b'mashu basar gidin batzam ha'is. Hakanami b'mashu basar gidin batzam ha'is. You didn't have a kazayis and basar, but if you combine the basar, which is the edible part, with gidin and batzam ha'is, then you'd have a kazayis. So therefore, alt oif tamei, where you're only mechuyev if you eat basar oif tamei, there is no chiyav malchus because you didn't have a kazayis. But al Ever Min Hachai, where you could even combine the gidin and atzamais into what's prohibited for Ever Min Hachai, therefore you would have a kazai. Dr. Rashi, Mashu Bosa Vigidin Vatzamais Mashlibin Lekazais. We need all 3 components, even the so-called non-edible components, to be mashed into a kazayis of Ever Min Hachai. The Mishum Tumah Lemechayiv, that in Vigidin Vatzamais Tam, Tameh, you don't, there's no time in them, and there would be no Isser Achilas Tumah, Achil Pevit Tameya, but it's from Ever Min Hachai, but Ever Min Hachai Chayiv. Why? A very important point Rashi is making here. Lahagi Palginu Kra, La'ever Min Hachai, Ubater Min Hachai, the Mechayiv Ever, Aval Gavdein Shir, Basar, Basar Al Fishay Ever. We're going to soon see that the pasuk separates the law for Ever Min Hachai and for Basar Min Hachai. Technically, it could have all been one law. The fact that Torah separates them is to tell us that for Basar Min Hachai you need a kazayis. For Ever Min Hachai, you don't have to have a shir basar. You can just have a kazayis of Ever Min Hachai, even if it has bones and gidin as part of the kazayis. Tashma, we're going to have another kash on Rav who says Ever Min Hachai Torah kazayis. The Amar Rav. Let's turn on the base. If you ate a complete kosher bird when it was live, B'chol you're going to over with a kol shu, as Rashi says, mishum over min hachai. So right off the bat, al maloi b'din kazayis. You can eat a whole bird, and even though it's a kol shu, and you're going to get malchus. So you see clearly not like that. B'misasa, if it's dead, meaning it's in the vela b'kazayis, because we know that in order to be over dish in the vela, you have to eat a kazayis. Oh, Tameya, what about an oif Tameya? Bein b'chayah, bein b'misasa, b'chol shehu, regardless, it will be usher with a kol shehu. Zok Rashi, why would it be chayiv with a kol shehu? Chayiv, the beryahi. If you eat a complete oif Tameh, it's a berya, and therefore, v'loi tzrich hashir, kidetnan be'elu heina loikin. Well, if you eat a full ant, but it's tiny, it's nowhere near kazayis, shu chayiv, Alma, what do you see from here? That bury asur b'cholshu, but the lav in the nevela, but the lav of nevela, we learned earlier, the din beria would not apply to it. When it was created, when it became a beria, it wasn't a nevela, it was alive. You're not mechuyev malchus if you eat nevela only until you eat a kazayis. But for oiv tamei, you would be over less than the kazayis if it's a full burial. But katani miyah, let's go back to the first part of the brisa. If you ate an oiv tar, you ate the whole thing, it's going to be chai with a koshu. It's not a kazayis. Dr. Gemara, we'll say the same teretz of Reb Nachman, and that is when it says b'cholshu, it doesn't mean that there's no kazayis in the whole bird. It means there's no kazayis of meat in the whole bird. But if you combine the gidin vatzamayis with the meat, there would be a kazayis. Tashma, not al tzipor she'ein boy kazayis. You took a tzipor, Rashi as a kosher bird, and it didn't have a kazayis, and you ate it complete. Rebbe Poiter, Rebbe holds it's Poiter, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Machai. Rashi shares with us a very important point. Rebbe Poiter, Mefarish Fosel, the Gemara is going to elaborate right now and teach us that Rebbe holds the Kasover ein Ever min Hachai b'Shlema. Ever min Hachai means an Ever broken off the Chai. If you eat the whole bird, there's no Isser Ever min Hachai. If you eat one Ever of it, you'll be Chai. But if you eat the whole thing, you're not Chai. The Lav Ever it's not called Ever min Hachai. Umiu, Ika Gazais, Hafa Machai. But if there was a Gazais Bosar in that bird, you would have been Mechuyev, not als Ever min Hachai, als Bosar min Hachai. L'Igar mi Bosar min Hachai, the Machai v'lo Gazais, the Nami Bosar. So that's the sheet of Rebbe. Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon Machai. Why is Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon Machai? It's not an Ever min Hachai. It's the whole thing. Rashi the Kasavar Shalema Ein Loch Ever min Hachai Gadol Mizeh. A full animal, that's the biggest Ever min Hachai, and therefore there would be a disr. So Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon Machai. Amar Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon Kavachaymer. It's a Kavachaymer. Al Ever min Hachai. You're chayiv even for one Ever min Hachai of this bird. Al Kula Lekal Shagain. Surely you're going to be chayiv if you eat the whole thing. It's a pasha disvar. What if you kill this bird? So now it's not an Ever min Hachai anymore. Rather, it is a nevela. Well, also you ate it. Divra called the kazayis because that's called nevela. And the nevela you're only over if you eat a kazay. Zok I can't like pligi. The whole machloik is over here between Rebbe and Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon is El Lemar Saber Bechayel Leivor in my Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon holds that when the animal's alive, you don't look at it like it's one complete animal. You look at it like it's a whole bunch of different Eivar. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar says, if I'm eating all of the Eivar at once, that's for sure Eivar min Hachai. Because you don't look at a bird as one piece, you look at it as a sum of its individual Eivar. And therefore, he asked the Kavachaymer, if you eat an Eivar Yechayev, surely you eat all Eivar. But Umar Savar, Rebbe holds, Bechayel Lav Eivar men with us. A bird, when it's not cut up, is not Leivarim. You don't look at it as a combination of a whole bunch of Leivarim together. Rather, you look at it as a whole bird. It's not a neighbor. However, the chula al mamila being kazayis. But everybody would agree you don't need a kazayis. Because what are we saying over here? We're saying that according to Abelazar Bar Shimon, each piece wouldn't have a kazayis in it, right? And if you eat it, you're going to be chayiv. If you eat the whole thing, you're going to be chayiv, even though there's no kazayis in the whole thing. So you clearly see that you can be over the issue of Min Hachai, even though you didn't eat a kazayis. The whole machlokes between Rabbi and Elazar B'Shimon is, do you perceive this as an Ever Min Hachai or not, or not as Evar? But everybody seems to hold that you don't need a kazayis. Once again, it's a kashan Rav. Rab Nachman, the same teretz. The Mashu Basar Gidin Batamois, when it said in the Mish, in the Bryce over here, not Malti B'Shem Kazayis, it doesn't mean it didn't have a Kazayis at all. It means it didn't have a Kazayis of pure Basar. But together with the Gidin Batamois, it had a Kazayis. Practically Gemara, Umi Kamidi, is it possible the Bechule less be Kazayis Basar, the entire bird does not have a Kazayis Basar, and unless you combine with it the Gidin and the Tzamais, you will not have a Kazayis of Ever Min Hachai. Yet Ubechad Ever is Kazayis, and in the one Ever you'll have a Kazayis. As Rashi asks, Mi Kamidi, could you have such a weak bird? The Bekula Leka Kazayis Basar, in the entire bird, you're not going to have even one kazayis of basar. Yet, in one aver, you might have a kazayis of basar combined with gittin and avar. So the bechul kazayis basar vu godol, there's no kazayis basar in the entire bird, but it's big enough to ba'akas meivarav ika kazayis v'mashu basar v'gittin v'atzamois mashliman. Is it logical to say that in the whole earth there's no basar? But I can take, let's say, a wing, and in that wing there'll be basar, gidin, and tzavos that combine to a kazayis. If there's not even a kazayis of basar in the whole bird, can it be possible that there's one limb that I can patch together with basar, gidin, and tzavos? Yes, a kazayis. So Gemara, absolutely, there is such a bird, a very lean bird, Dr. Gemara, Amr Shavi in the Kalnisa bird. Now we know we're talking about a kosher bird in this price because if you killed it, why? Because it's mechuyev nevela. Nevela's oiftam. Remember, there's no tum on the oiftam. But if we're talking about a kalnisa, well, kalnisa oiftam here. The kalnisa is an oiftam. So how could you say we're talking about a kalnisa bird? A tummy would be also even b'mashu if you ate it. I shouldn't need a kazayis. Ella ke'ein kalnisa. We don't mean this is actually the kalnisa bird because that's a tummy. We mean a kosher bird that has those same properties, that they're very, very lean, and they don't even have a kazayis basar in the whole bird. But if you combine the basar with the gidin and the tummies, even of one aver, you would have a kazayis. Very bony bird. Zok the Gemara. Amarafim took to Loimar, Sava Rebbe, Machsheves Oichlin Shma Machshav. Now, if you hold that when you look at something and you have in mind to eat it in a certain fashion, it gives it that status. So we have by Tumah such a concept. Machshavim etamason. If I think of a piece of leather that I plan to use as a throw rug that doesn't need any adjustment, my machshava makes it tummy. So with oichel, the way you think about an oichel, that determines what type of oichel it is. As Rashi says, Timsa loymar be'echad midvarav shel Rebbe ba'alma. If you're going to find amongst Rebbe's halachas somewhere in Shas that he happens to hold the Islay machshavas oichlin, so how about imchishav loichlin kanzeh? How about you looked at this bird that we're talking about that you ate in one shot, but you looked at it and you had in mind that I'm going to cook this, cut it up, and cook it. So in your eyes, in your mind, you made it already into a var. So zokt the Gemara. Let's move up a little bit. Imtim tzalaymar zokt Rava. That Sava Rebbe machshavas oichlin shema machshava. So chishav loichla aver. What if you looked at this bird and you had in mind that you're going to cut it up into pieces and eat it one aver at a time. But then you ate the whole thing. You'll be chai. Because even though Rebbe said you don't look at a whole bird as aver min hachai, but once in your mind you had already intended to cut it up, and then you ate it that way, and you didn't cut it up yet, but we look at it like it's cut up, even your Rebbe would be moida that this would be an aver min hachai, and he'd be moida to Rav Elazar B'Shimon that what you ate was not a complete bird, but it was an assembly of multiple avarim. Because in your mind, you've already wanted to do that. Amalei Abaye, how can it be? Well, we committee the ilu ochalei echad. If anybody else ate it who didn't have this machshava, you look at it like it's one bird, and according to Rebbe, there would not be this aver min hachai. The ochalei hai mechayiv, and Bibal, this guy thought of this bird differently. He'll be mechayiv. Two people can eat the same bird. One person will be aver min hachai, and one not. Amalei, Rav said yes. That's exactly how it would be. Zelafi machshavosoi, v'zelafi machshavosoi. V'yomer Rav, im tim tzaloymar sava Rav Elazar bar Shimon machshavos oichel shema machshava. If Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon would also buy into this shita that how you want to eat something will determine its status. So what about chishav la'oichlo mesa? What if I had in mind that I'm going to eat this bird after it died, but va'achla chaya, meaning chishav la'oichlo mesa, I had no intention of cutting it up now. I was only going to kill it and then cut it up. So now Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon is talking about a guy who looked at the bird like Rebbe assesses the bird, as one unit, not as individual levar. So what if you did that? Dr. Gemara, Potter, because there, even Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon would be mighty to Rebbe that you look at it like one bird, not as a var. Amar Levi, the same question. Yes. How you perceive something and your plans, how to prepare something, will actually impact what its status is. This pasuk zeh aver min hachai. That is the prohibition of aver min hachai. The pasuk says ubasar b'sada treifa loiseichelu. Zeh basar min hachai. So there's two separate isurim, one for aver min hachai and one's basar min hachai, which would mean if someone did aver min hachai and then he ate basar min hachai, he did two malchis because he was over two different lavin. And ubasar min hatreifa. So the pasuk of ubasar b'sada treifa loiseichelu prohibits sai basar min hachai and sai basar min hatreifa. So what if you ate basar min hachai and basar min hatreifa together? You'd only get one malchus. You know why? Because you only violated one lav. Basar b'sada treifa loiseichelu. Reb Shimon ben Lakish Amar, he learns a little bit differently. He holds loiseichel nefesh sheba basar. That's referring to sai aver min hachai and basar min hachai. So therefore, if you ate a piece of aver min hachai and basar min hachai together, you would only get one malchus. Basar b'sada treifa loiseichelu, that's exclusively allowed for basar min hatreifa. So, if you ate aver min hachai and basar min hachai, because there's two lavin involved. Because they're both learned from the same law. But also basar min hachai and basar min hatreifa, because it's two lavin. Because you learn them both out of the basar b'sada treifa. What about achal aver min hachai ubasar min hatreifa? There, everybody would hold you're chayiv too, because surely one is from loiseichel hanefesh dam, and the other one will be from ubasar b'sada. Uramini frank the Gemara akasha on this halach. Let's turn on to Kuf Gimel of Anal just to get over to the top. You ate aver min hachai from a treifa animal. That makes sense because one is aver min hachai and one is also basar b'sada treifa. But Reb Shimon Lakish Amar ein chayiv alachas. He holds yechayiv achas. That doesn't make sense because there's still two asurim here. Because there's two different lavin. Reb Shimon Lakish kosher. According to Shimon Lakish, it's also going to be shver because he also holds the two separate lavin. Gemara, I'm reviewing to like kasha. Kam bebeimachas, kam b'shtei behemois. B'shtei behemois mechayiv shtayim, bebeimachas pligi. So let's stop here, and we'll pick up from Ravini tomorrow. Everyone should have an awesomely wonderful day.
Yeah.
Go ahead.